Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Humanity's Voice. I have a special guest today, Max McGuire. He is not a victim of sexual abuse or anything like that. Well, I don't know. I've never asked him. Maybe I should. But I don't believe he is. Max, I met him. We both lived in Colorado. He used to be on a podcast called Conservative Daily, and we just want to do a show where it's a little bit encouraging how we can like stand up in the face of adversity and things that are going around like on in our country. Max is awesome. I mean, he's one of like the best researchers I've ever seen. I have talked to him at length many times about different topics, and even if we don't agree, we can still have good conversations without attacking each other. So I'm sure that's something that will come up here today. So I am just going to bring Max on, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell us a little bit about him, and then we'll get into it.
Hey,
Max,
Madyson.
how are you?
Pretty good. All things considered, pretty good. No complaints. It's a good day. I think
Yeah,
it's a good day.
good day. Kids okay? Kids behaving?
Kids are at daycare, so they're their problem. But we'll see. We'll see whether we get happy kids or rambunctious kids at the end of the day. We'll see.
I love it. I love it. Well, you have to take them out, right? Let your wife relax.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Usually she takes them out,
Okay.
we'll do something with them. I mean, maybe they'll come home and they'll already be like ready for bed. That would be fantastic. But we can't always be that lucky.
Right, right. Well, Max, I mean, my audience doesn't know you. I know I joked. I'm sure you're not a victim of sexual abuse. I think we would
I'm
have had
not.
that conversation.
I'm not. I am not. I am just equally as disgusted by the fact that it happens in this country and the fact that there are powerful people out there who are involved in it, covering it up. I don't know if you saw this. I think it was yesterday. One of the senators brought before Congress a bill to increase the penalty for child pornography traffickers, and Democrats voted it down, saying that it was a fake crisis. I mean, that's come on, guys.
How
Um,
is trafficking a fake? I haven't seen that, but I follow it pretty closely. I know that there's a bunch of different laws that have passed, but that's just sickening. It's of course because the left are a bunch of pedophiles. I mean, that's why they.
Well,
And
there's a
so
lot of
why?
them. There's more than we thought, and I always look at it like the old line from Hamlet: "Methinks they doth protest too much." When they're literally like putting up
Yeah.
fisticuffs to defend child pornography traffickers and pedophiles, I think you're protesting a bit too much, there, guy.
Right, right. Well, the one thing I don't know if I've ever told you this. I hate the word child pornography because children cannot consent.
Yeah,
Like,
they can't.
it's
They can't.
child rape. Like
Yeah.
they've made it like that name. They've made it to make it like, oh, it's okay, it's fine. Like child pornography. Like children are just like going on a porn set to film porn, which is not
Yeah, it's
the
not how.
reality.
I did a deep dive into some of these cases that were on Judge Jackson's record, where she went incredibly soft on these pedophiles. I mean, if you're caught with that level of that kind of CP, for lack of a better word, on your computer,
Right.
it's not just a thought experiment. They're not just curious about it. We're talking about hundreds of video files, hundreds of images that are being shared back and forth. These are pedophiles, and for whatever reason, it still hasn't come out. She has a soft spot for these people. I understand having a soft spot for criminals and wanting to rehabilitate them, because ultimately the goal is to get these people fixed so they can re-enter our society and not reoffend. But it doesn't seem to be her goal, at least in these sentencings. I read some of these cases, and these are disgusting cases. The
Where's she a
media
judge
isn't
out of?
covering. She was in the D.C. circuit.
Okay.
So she was in the D.C. circuit. She went to the appeals court, and now they're putting her on the Supreme Court because we got 3 Republicans who are going to vote for her. So it's a done deal.
It's just to get the pedophiles off. It's crazy. Oh, that is I'm having a blonde moment here because I've been following. I mean, it's crazy to me. I mean, that's for people that don't know. Max, when he was on the Conservative Daily podcast, I had called into a show once or twice. I don't remember. Once, I think,
Yeah,
where he was talking about
a couple years
pedophiles
ago.
and human trafficking and talking about like the celebrities of it, and it's it is so disgusting how much they're trying to make it normal right now, which it's not. It's not normal. And putting on the Supreme Court someone that's lenient means that your kid gets raped or molested or trafficked, God forbid, you just get away with it. I mean,
Yeah,
really.
And I remember when you called in, you told us your story, you talked about a lot of it, because this is something that's really important, and the media isn't covering it. I mean, I'm no longer on the Conservative Daily podcast anymore. I started it on my living room couch, just with my cell phone, just doing audio, and it kind
Well,
of has
tell us
grown into
about
this.
you. Tell us about that. Your story.
Yeah. So I worked for Conservative Daily for 8 years. Every piece of email content, written content, video content was made by me. Created the Conservative Daily podcast again on my living room couch. Joe got involved. It kind of grew into this video podcast. When COVID hit and when all the lockdowns happened, we decided, hey, let's make this a daily show. So it's kind of grown since then. No longer with the show. Had a difference of opinion on the trajectory of what the show should cover, what kind of topics the show should talk about. So I'm no longer with them. I wish them the best. But now I'm doing my own thing. I have my own show, the Max McGuire Show, available on Rumble and all different audio versions. Yeah, there's my Telegram link if you want to check me out there.
Oh,
that's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, and you're talking about Joe Altman, right?
Yes.
Who did this.
Yes.
Okay. I know people follow him as well. And like, what made you get into, like, have you just always loved politics and history? Is that what made, because you started on your couch, so something had to come up where you're like,
yeah,
I do this.
So I have a master's degree in political science. Oh. So I don't love to throw it around, but some people say, oh, it doesn't matter. It's always been it's always, yeah, I know, yeah. It's always just been something that I've really been passionate about, and I knew that I wanted to be in politics. I wanted to get involved in politics. So I said, hey, why not get a master's degree, see where that leads me. I got lucky enough that I was hired to join up with Conservative Daily right out of while I was in grad school. Became a partner, was able to grow it. So it's been an exciting experience, to say the least.
That's got to be hard leaving when you've like kind of grown it. It's got to be hard for you to leave something, because I mean, you started on your couch. It's got to be like part of your heart a little bit.
So Conservative Daily, the organization, began before me. I started the podcast on my couch. Yeah, it is. It's a little bittersweet. Anyone who watched the last episode I was on, it was very hard, and there were moments in there where I was kind of holding back tears, not because I was leaving, but because people in the comment section were messaging in how much they appreciate everything I've done. So I didn't know at the time that was going to be my last podcast. The next day I was. How can I say this? Invited not to be on the air. But it was a great experience. We touched a lot of people. We opened a lot of people's eyes up. We had a thing where every day I would write an article, write an email, trying to call people's attention to important things that were happening in DC or around the country, things the media isn't really focusing on, trying to drive advocacy. We had a ton of really huge success stories. So it was great, but ultimately I had to step away, had to leave. They have their own political opinions, what they believe, what they want to advocate, and it just doesn't line up with mine anymore. So had a clean split, wish them the best, and now I'm on my own.
Yeah. And people that don't know, I loved listening to Max. I mean, he was one of my favorite shows to listen to. Like, whether I believed an opinion or not, he always had the research to back it up. So I'm excited to start following the Max McGuire show, because I do know that I could like call Max and be like, you're crazy. I'm sure he thinks, and I want to like switch gears here about that, because Max and I, one of the biggest questions people are asking me on Telegram, why doesn't Max believe the way you do with Ukraine? I find it comical, and we've had this conversation. Mm-hmm. So Max, I always say Max probably thinks some of the stuff I say is like way out there and crazy, but we know each other on a personal level, so it's a little bit different, I know, than like on social media. So, I mean, we are able to have those conversations where we're not fighting, we're not like being like the liberals and calling each other names. I mean, that is like one of the biggest issues I've seen right now, even in all countries, not just our country, where people are just fighting over a difference of opinion. And I think that's what the left want. I mean, do you agree, or tell me your opinion on that?
I think that's absolutely accurate. I was a little shocked that the thing that kind of destroyed Joe and my relationship, because I'd worked with him for 8 years. He was at the christening of my son. Like, we've had a very personal relationship. I was shocked that what kind of destroyed it was a difference of opinion over Ukraine and Russia. I always keep an open mind. I don't believe that I know enough to be sure about anything. I like to look at the evidence. I like to look at everything in front of me and try and make the best decision about what's going on that I can. Anytime I see that legitimate propaganda outlets are putting out information, like, I'm not just going to take something that the Russian consulate pushes out and say, oh, that's 100% true, because obviously they have their ulterior motives, just like the United States does. Not everything the United States puts out is completely true. But yeah, with the Ukraine stuff, I don't believe that the Ukrainian government is necessarily good. I've just I find it really hard to believe that the biolabs part of it, especially now the part tying Hunter Biden to it. I have no doubt that there are companies that used Hunter Biden's influence, just like other companies around the world have. And I have no doubt that there are companies involved with the biolabs. Just the narrative that's now kind of emerged that Hunter Biden, in the middle of smoking crack, in the middle of him sifting through carpet fibers to find crack and accidentally smoking Parmesan cheese, in the middle of him wandering aimlessly through homeless encampments in San Francisco, in the middle of all of this, the claim that he was some kind of kingpin making weapons of mass destruction inside of veterinary labs in Ukraine. I feel like that's a step too far. Now, if someone comes out with a check or some kind of contract where Hunter Biden signs and says, yes, I want to make these WMDs inside of a veterinary lab, then obviously I'm wrong, right? I'm not afraid of being wrong. I just look at it and say, well, no, Hunter Biden couldn't even tell the difference between Parmesan cheese and crack. Let's just stop for a second and say he's not making WMDs half a world away in a vet lab.
Well, you made like a perfect actually statement there, because think about Joe Biden, and I got to be careful because it's on YouTube. So he's a puppet right now. Yeah. And so there's no doubt that family has a puppet master. And so if he's like on crack and all of this, and he was, I know he was.
No, he was. He put in his memoir.
I'm not like saying that as a, like he was, he probably still is, and I'm not making fun of anybody that's on drugs. I just think he's a sick SOB. So it's a different type of situation. But if you're intoxicated in whatever way, you can get someone to sign contracts with their names and everything else like that. So I definitely agree that he couldn't physically or mentally be able to do that, because, and I didn't know that about the Parmesan cheese. It's cracking me up.
Oh yeah, he said that during an interview. I think it was a mainstream media interview, saying that he was picking out trying to find crack in the carpets, and he was smoking Parmesan cheese.
Welcome to our podcast, guys.
Yeah, I love to say that we've all been there, but I don't think we all have. So
no, I mean, listen, I've been drunk in my day. Like, your wife's a recruiter. I was a recruiter. We like to drink, right? Yeah. As recruiters, it's just something that you do. And I don't think I've ever been that drunk where I would be like not knowing the difference between like a drug and
a pizza topping.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, okay, so you're totally now. Okay, so I know people are going to ask questions here about it. Do you think, like, first of all, the Ukrainian government, the American government, any government at this point does not care about the people. They don't care about us. How do you like give advice to the people that are wanting to fight about it? Because listen, you and I are having a conversation here. We're laughing. Like, what advice do you give to the people to have like political conversations, even though you and I grew up in a day and age where you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics. With that time and that era is over. So how do like you give advice to people to have conversations that are logical and to make them, even if it sounds like a conspiracy? Because I mean, you had said to me the other day, I think you said, some conspiracies are coming true.
Oh, lots are. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to people? Because we're not the odd ones out that can have differences of opinions and conversations, and all these other people are fighting and cussing, and it doesn't matter whether they believe left, right, middle, whatever. It's like aggressive. I mean,
I was a little shocked at how Ukraine divided the conservative movement, because I mean, we can all have differences of opinion, but at the end of the day, we should all be pulling from the same rope and fighting for America, right? Yeah. I think we all agree that America does not have a serious like national security interest in Ukraine, other than the fact that we don't want nuclear bombs going off anywhere in the world. Ukraine is not really, it's not our problem. There's no reason for us to invade. There's no reason for us to be putting any boots on the ground whatsoever, which is why it was so crazy when like Lindsey Graham was calling for a no-fly zone. I don't think he understands what that means.
Right.
That means American pilots having to shoot down Russian pilots.
Right.
What? No, it's obviously not in our interest. I think most conservatives would agree on that. I was just a little shocked at the way that all went down, because I know you saw it happening on Telegram. I saw it happened on my old podcast in the comment section. If we're all fighting for America, I was just a little shocked that divided the movement, and I've had my suspicions that there were other people involved in trying to stir that up, because never doubt that the Russian government is trying to make sure that the world is talking about things on their terms, right?
Right.
So the whole bit about Russia stealing the election through troll farms, that was never real, right? It was never real.
Right.
But the troll farms do exist, and they are trying to push a narrative online through social media, through other influencers. So we just always have to be wary of that. And when people ask me, like, well, what do you know is true? I try and consume all the content. I take the official sources from government. I take media sources. I know people don't like the media. I don't like the media. But when every major newspaper has someone on the ground in Ukraine, you can't just not listen to what they're seeing. Take it with a grain of salt. And usually the truth is a combination of everything, or something lying just under the surface that they don't want you to know about.
It's true. I mean, it's funny because even the mainstream media that we listen to, there's sometimes truth in there. You just have to find it. You have to decipher and figure out like what you want the truth is. And it really did divide a lot of people. I was surprised because it seemed like a lot of people came together with the COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fighting against the tyranny. And you saw like people come together, but then here we go, that switches gears to Ukraine and Russia. And it's like everyone's fighting. I mean, you lost a job that you loved, right? Like there was a difference of opinion over that. Like out of everything, that's what breaks a relationship, which is crazy to me when it's like, okay, why are people pissed off here in America? We have so many issues going on right now in America with this CRT, like,
Yeah.
with our kids. I mean, passing laws, the Supreme Court that they're putting, pedophiles on. I mean, there's police officers that are protecting these pedophile pastors. Like, it is a lot of issues here in America, but no one seems to care or talk about it. I don't understand. It's like, let's talk about all these other world issues, but here we are in the best country in the world, and they're trying to make it a communist socialism country.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that if we took just a fraction of the amount of outrage that not just conservatives, but the country as a whole has expressed towards what's happening in Ukraine, just a tiny fraction of that outrage, with everyone changing their Facebook profile pictures and their Twitter profile pictures to the blue and yellow. If we just harnessed a little bit of that energy, I don't think we'd have the problems we're facing here. And part of that is the mainstream media is doing. I think, obviously, the war in Ukraine happened on Vladimir Putin's timetable, but the media was very happy to switch to that to avoid talking about other scandals within the Biden administration. So you always have to understand that the mainstream media want you to focus on certain things.
Right.
That was
Biden regime.
yeah. Don't focus on the fact that that Joe Biden just called Michelle Obama the former vice president. Don't focus on that. Instead, focus on what's happening in Kiev. Right? I mean, there's always that going on, and you have to dive through it. You have to cut through it and get to the bottom. It's hard to do sometimes, and I don't always know that I'm completely accurate. I try and research as much as I can. I try and prevent the facts and like primary source documents and bills and things like that I can to show you why I've arrived at the decision I've arrived at. It's hard to do. It's hard to do. If it was easy to do, I don't think you'd have as many conservative podcasters, as many conservative shows out there. It wouldn't be necessary. This whole industry, this whole niche is necessary because the mainstream media is deliberately not doing that job.
Right. Well, that's like, I feel like a pandemic in itself is that people don't research. Like, we're two people, right? We do media, we do different things. Like, don't take our word for it. Go research it. Like, but we weren't taught it. So it's, God forbid, you research it and then have a difference of opinion when you research it. It's like, I mean, it happened today on my Telegram channel. I posted a video and everyone assumed what I had put that I had an opinion on it. When I hadn't put an opinion, I just posted a video. There's no opinion there just because I post a video. Like, go do your research on the video. Either believe it or you don't believe it, but do the research on it. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just take your word for it on your podcast and everything else. Go research it.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's hard to do because they don't want to take the time to do it. And like when you're doing research, because you're like an epic researcher, you're like digging deep, right? Like,
yeah.
tell us about like, and where do you like research? What are your sources? I know people are going to ask that.
Yeah. So research is kind of like a dirty word. People think of it like the old days, like, oh man, I have to figure out the Dewey Decimal System. I have to go to the library. I have to figure out that. You don't have to nowadays. Pretty much everything is online. So like Judge Jackson, her cases, they are at your fingertips. Don't just take the media's word for it, because you have the mainstream media saying it's all about nothing. You have conservative media saying, oh, the sky is falling. Make sure that it's easy to look, right? It's going to take a little time, but realize that the time is not going to be how long it takes you to find it. It's going to be reading it. And that's going to be however fast of a reader you are and however fast you can digest the information. Probably, if we're being honest, you probably have to click on your computer screen 4 or 5 times to reach these decisions, which in the grand scheme of things is crazy, because just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if you wanted to research what a judge said in certain cases, you have to go to your library, or you'd have to drive down to the Library of Congress, right? And figure it out. Now it really is at your fingertips. So it's very easy to do the research once you start figuring out the best places to search. And once you get into the swing of things, you can realize that, oh, wow, they didn't tell us that. They left that part out. And then you start realizing why they left it out.
When it's funny, you say 4 or 5 clicks, people like freak out. Oh my gosh, 4 or 5 clicks. It's like, you think about it. And, things used to not be public like they are now. Laws have changed. Federal laws have changed to where we do have access, because we, the people, should have access to that. If you are technically voting in these judges into, even though I have like a different opinion on the judges, but let's just say for the people that are watching that think that these people are real and not, I'm having a blonde moment here, Max. No, that's what I'm saying. So the laws have changed. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
The laws have changed where you can now have access to that. You didn't have access to it before. Like, go research where these people are. Are they making, decisions on behalf of us, the people, we the people? Like, know who you're voting for, know who's like making those decisions, even for like a president. I mean, are people researching like you're voting, or do you just hate someone so much that the other one just looks better? But the one looks nice and shiny, but usually the nice and shiny one is like the piece of crap that you shouldn't be voting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have no love for the Republican Party. I think that the Republican Party, the only bit of it that's even salvageable now are the parts that tried to kind of morph into Trumpism, right? Tried to take some of Trump's ideas and bring them into the fold. The Republican Party is in many cases just as bad as the Democrat Party. I mean, you put them together, especially the establishment types, you put them in the same room, they're not really going to even be distinguishable. So I have no love for either party, and the parties love to create this us-them dichotomy that, oh, you're on our team and the other team's bad and you have to vote for the other team. I don't think I'll ever be able to vote for a Democrat. I've never have in my life.
Right.
Never voted for a Democrat. I don't think I ever could pull the trigger for a Democrat. I just couldn't do it. But that doesn't mean I would automatically vote for the Republican. Right. So, and that's what each party wants you to do, so that after the primary, the establishment Republican wins and the Republican Party says, oh no, you have to vote for him because the Democrat's so much worse. Well, practically, yes, you do. But we're in the position we're in because year after year after year, decade after decade, we get left with these like the lesser of two evils kind of situation where we're voting for people that don't really represent us, that actually despise us, that have contempt for what we actually believe in as the lesser of two evils. Well, don't be surprised when we have an evil being nominated for the Supreme Court and those same Republicans are now flipping sides and voting for it.
Right. Well, that's the thing is, if you think about it and they wanting all of us to fight, none of these people in government give a crap about us. They really don't. They want our tax dollars. They are like crushing the little man. I mean, I've seen so many lawsuits with just like people that love their country that is like crushing the American family. Like coming down hard on them. Like you, Max. I mean, you're married, you have a family, like you're the American family,
Aw.
and that's the you know, it is. I mean, really, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like they're coming down. Those are the families that are coming down, filing lawsuits and making it like near impossible to live. And it's like these people don't care. They want to crush us as much as they can and take as much away from us as they can. And it's like all this infighting with everyone. If we all just came to that like realization, we'd live in a much better place. And then think about like you
Yeah.
had mentioned the Twitter with like the Russia and Ukraine flags. Imagine when that happened if everyone put up an American flag. Like,
Oh yeah, no,
you
it'd
know
be
what I mean?
racist.
Like, can we just love our country just a little bit here? I mean, I
They'd
love
say we're
it.
racist. They
I,
say it's a racist to put up the American flag.
right.
Yeah.
Right, which is ridiculous. And people don't even know you're a history buff. This is totally off topic, but you should go look up our actually real American flag is the civic peace flag. That's the true American flag. I'll have to send you an article on it. I posted it on Telegram, but that's our actual true flag. The flag that we have now was the war flag, and they wanted it to like mean war. Don't get me wrong, I love
Yeah.
both flags. I love
The
the
Betsy
American
Ross flag.
flag. The what?
The Betsy Ross flag,
Yeah.
with the circle of stars. No, we had tons of flags. I mean, there were so many flags that you had no. If you were alive in the Revolutionary War period, you'd have to like pull out a little book to figure out what each flag meant, what unit, what brigade each flag represent, what militia each flag represented. Like in Maine, the flag that different militias from Maine and Massachusetts would fly would just be a pine tree. That was it, a pine tree. And the reason is they were pissed off that the King of England wouldn't let them cut down pine trees that were 12 inches or larger in diameter because the King of England wanted them for ships. So there were riots in Massachusetts, riots in parts of Maine over the pine tree. So they adopted that as their symbol, right? So there's tons of different flags. The Don't Tread on Me flag. They all have a different part of our history, and they all have really cool stories attached to them.
Right. Do you fly a flag? Do you have a
I had a flag. I had a Trump 2020 flag. It got all tethered, and for some reason it fell down. So I have to put it back up. A couple of my neighbors are flying ones that have a little bit more colorful language. One of them is flying it right across from the HOA president, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. But yeah, no, it's there's lots of people having opinions here in Texas.
I love it. Well, if people that don't know, I'm following Max's Telegram, and he's on his HOA in his
Yeah.
neighborhood, and he's about to like listen. This is like my soap opera daily. I go like look to see what's going on with his HOA. So he's actually about to get kicked. Did you get kicked off?
I didn't. I didn't. They don't know how to kick me off, so they failed. Yeah, I mean, I hate HOAs. Where I live in Texas, you don't really have a choice if you want newer construction. I joined the HOA because I was tired. My HOA didn't let kids swim in the pool. We have an HOA pool in 2020 because of COVID, which was beyond stupid because it's hot, it's sunny, it's humid, and there's chlorine in the water. Of all the places that kids should be allowed to play, it should be in a chlorinated pool. I joined my HOA board just because I thought that was stupid, and it's gotten a little testy. Sometimes I tell it like it is, and the other people on the HOA board don't like it. So they're trying to remove me, but they don't really know how to do it. And I understand Robert's Rules of Orders and like the rules of procedure. So we had a meeting yesterday. I just gummed it up with like points of order to the point where our management company rage quit, which is like if you're playing video games and you're so tired that you just lost, you throw your your control at the wall and rip the power cord off the wall. They just ended the meeting. So I don't really know where it stands now, but they're trying to remove me, but it's not going well because I don't think they really understand what they have to do.
See the diversity everywhere, just everyone wanting to fight, like even in an HOA, right? Like this is where America, it's like, I feel like people feel like with government, we're losing control. And so they try to gain that control wherever they can. Like that's what I like watching Max and what's going on with this HOA. That's what I see there. Like these people are just wanting some type of control, usually because the control is lost everywhere else in their life. And this is the only like place they have control. So here comes Max, which is funny because when I met Max, I thought he was like this quiet dude. I'm like, I don't think I'd want to get in a fight with him. He'd probably like cuss me out or, so that's what I see. I mean, do you think I'm wrong here? I feel like people are just trying to grab onto that control wherever they can.
And I think that what we see in my HOA and what we see at large with Joe Biden, which everyone with anyone else in power right now, is that they grossly overestimate the mandate that was given to them. And I use the word given as loosely as possible, given the fact that you're on YouTube and I don't want to get you taken down. Um,
All right.
the,
I've already been
the,
kicked off once.
they think they have a mandate that doesn't actually exist. I mean, current polling has Joe Biden, even Democrat pollsters, having him polling in the mid to high 30 percentile. That is incredible. And like, use that to deduce what you want to deduce from that, the
Right.
legitimacy of his office. But we see it in HOAs too. Like, my HOA, no one was actually, everyone who was elected by acclamation, meaning that two people ran for two spots. So they didn't even count the votes because they had two spots, they had two people running. And yet these people think that because they have a title next to their name, that just entitles them to act in a certain way. We see the same thing with Joe Biden. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw yesterday, you talk about Joe Biden being a quote unquote puppet and wondering who the puppet master is. I think we all saw who the puppet master was because he
Right.
was the only person in the room that people cared about talking to.
Right.
That's Barack Obama.
Well, and we've known that for a long time that Barack has been the puppet master for a long time. I mean, he's been running this. And here's like I have a theory, and this is just an opinion. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Barack Obama was in the background with these other presidents prior who did say that they were Republican, yet they're all chummy now. Like, you know what I mean? The only difference between Trump and these other presidents is they all hate Trump, and these ones
Yeah.
are all like chummy together. I'm like, how much has he been in the background running things? Probably for some time now, you know?
And that's the question we need to figure out. I talked about this on my podcast the other day. It's when did Joe Biden stop being in charge? Because it's very clear he isn't in charge. When Afghanistan was collapsing and world leaders were frantically trying to get a hold of him, he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't calling the shots. I think it took him 2 or 3 days to respond to the prime minister of the UK. That's not presidential leadership. So the question is, when did he stop calling the shots? Did they always know that this man was not going to call the shots? Was he always a puppet? Or after winning, did they realize, whoa, this man has dementia. This man thinks that his wife is his sister. This man thinks that his wife used to be vice president. How about we don't give him the nuclear football and let's just delegate different responsibilities to the national security advisor, the White House chief of staff, things like that. I'm not sure which one it is, right? I think it's entirely plausible that Barack Obama's been pulling the strings for the whole time. I also think that it's possible they realize just how bad Biden's dementia, his Alzheimer's, whatever you want to call it, his mental decline is, and have tried to react accordingly. Because it's not the first time that's happened. You look at our history; it happened with Woodrow Wilson. It happened with Ronald Reagan towards the end of his administration when he stops being able to. It's just not all there. He doesn't have his fastball anymore. Things start being delegated. In both situations, the first lady took on a larger role.
Right.
So it happens in our history, but it's scary. It's scary because we seem to always be on the brink of World War III these days. To
Yeah.
have him completely feckless, allegedly calling the shots. It's obvious that he isn't. So I think everyone in the country deserves to know who is. Either it's
Well,
Barack Obama or it's his old deputies who now work for Biden.
right. Well, I'm gonna ask you a conspiracy. I know my listeners are gonna listen and be like, ask him this question. So I'm gonna ask you a question because I know how
All
I
right.
believe on this. You're gonna probably think I'm crazy. Do you, and I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Biden before and
I
Biden
have.
now.
I
Do
have.
you think that that's the real Joe Biden?
Here's the problem. It's obvious that he had a facelift. Um, so if you look at the pictures on the campaign, early campaign 2015, you could see the scars. So you can see the scar right here, and you can notice those scars. I guess he's had work done on them. They're a little bit harder to see, and all scars will fade over time. A little harder to see. Maybe he had some subsequent work on it. It's very obvious he had a facelift. My problem is his eyes. They say that the eyes are the window of the soul.
Yeah.
Everyone's eyes are unique. Eyes tend to not change. They'll change in babies, right? Most babies
Right.
are, a lot of babies will be born with blue eyes and
Yeah.
then they'll shift to another color. That doesn't usually happen to octogenarians or septuagenarians. Doesn't usually happen when you're 70. The eyes are what get me because it's not the same eyes. You can have work done here. You can have work done in your nose and your
Yeah.
chin, right? And that can make you look different, but the eyes should always be the same. My theory with his eyes, I believe that he is on certain medications that are basically uppers, certain kinds of amphetamines that will dilate your pupils because of his advancing mental decline, whether it's Alzheimer's, whatever the diagnosis is. A lot of the medications that they will put people on to try and give them some kind of level of normalcy
Yeah.
will dilate your pupils really badly. So you'll notice that when Biden's outside, he's always wearing sunglasses. Anytime it's sunny out, he's always wearing sunglasses. My belief is that he's on these medications that dilate the pupils. Just like when you go to an eye doctor, they dilate your pupils. You step outside and it hurts.
Yeah.
I think that's his day to day.
Yeah.
And that's my theory. But the eyes really scare me because they're not the same.
Right.
They're not the same at all.
Right. So do you think, because I think you and I both agree, we know he's not running the country right now. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
way he can be running the country. And he was in those stages of dementia. Like we saw, my son, he went to the STEM school in Colorado when I was in there, and he had to do when they were running for president for Trump and Biden, and like what their healthcare, he had to research it. So he researched it. And one of the things he wrote on there was, I don't think that Joe Biden should be in charge of healthcare because he thinks it's blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whatever he said. Remember that video, put it out there. So we know.
Shimmin' in the pressure.
Yeah. He typed it out. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most comical thing I've ever seen. So we know he hasn't been running the country for a long time. My question to you, because again, it goes back, do you believe or think that Trump has any part in running the country right now, is running the country, or has any say? Because that's a lot of things that have been going on.
Yeah.
My opinion, but I want to get your opinion because again, I think it's important to hear it.
So on officially, do I think that Trump can give an order and someone in government does it? I don't think so.
Okay.
I know that there's lots of theories that people believe that he signed some orders that he's really president, but Joe Biden gets to sit there. I don't think so. In terms of who is the legitimate president, who does the world see as the real president, the person who should be spoken to, I think we've seen lots of world leaders since Biden was inaugurated still calling Trump, which is it's not usually normal when a president leaves office. They don't usually continue to field phone calls from world leaders during times of crisis. I mean, it can sometimes happen, but Trump's getting a lot of these phone calls, a lot of these world leaders reaching out to him. So I don't think that he is somewhere secretly giving orders while this charade goes on in front of us. That one's harder for me to believe. I'd love it. I mean, I'd love for that to be true. That would be fantastic. Yeah. I don't necessarily see that, but in terms of the world trying to identify who actually has a mandate from the people, who has the American people's respect, I think that in that question, Trump probably is a little bit more in charge than they try and make him out to be.
Right. I think that just like us, the American people, this was not an election. It wasn't an election of the people. They stole it. I mean, it was very clear. It wasn't. It was stolen, right? So
there goes YouTube.
I know. I'm like, geez, I'm gonna get. Listen, I got kicked off for the stupidest thing last time, so it'll still be up on Rumble, everyone too.
I got suspended from YouTube for nitpicking Joe Biden's doctoral thesis. So they said, no, you can't do that. She's Dr. Joe Biden. You can't say that. So it's whatever.
Listen, at this point, I get censored so many times. I get put in Instagram jail, Twitter jail, and Facebook jail more times than I can count. I think at one point I posted something and all three went down at the same time of jails. The censorship is just crazy. Speaking of social media, you're on Telegram. Are you on True Social or anything?
I'm not. I don't have an iPhone. I
Okay.
I ditched the Apple devices, so they don't have an iPhone, Android app yet, so I'm not on Truth Social. I'm on Telegram right now. I'm on Rumble. I will have a YouTube account. I'm trying to figure that. I mean, I don't like the idea of using YouTube, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people there, right? And that's who you're trying to reach. You're not just trying to reach conservatives, you're trying to reach independents, because those are the ones that ultimately decide elections. And yes, there are some out there, Democrats, who still have a little bit of common sense left, and when presented with the right information can realize, oh my goodness, what was I supporting? So I'll probably go back to YouTube, but I'm done with Facebook. I can't stand Facebook.
Yeah.
It's not healthy anymore.
See, I'm with you on that. Except for a friend of mine, we are trying to see who gets kicked off first. So we've had this race, but we just keep getting put in jail, like Facebook jail. So, well, with what's going on in the country, I mean, listen, you've been in the conservative realm and that movement for so long. I mean, you've seen things go up and down, and like it's probably the worst you've ever seen it. I mean, what encouragement can you give to people just because this is one of the things I wanted to talk about, just like the adversity that's going on of the hatefulness and us fighting. Like, what encouragement would you give to people, like to keep going and to fight?
uh, the encouragement I would give to people is that all of the indicators show that we're probably Republicans are probably going to retake the House of Representatives in the fall, maybe even retake the Senate, especially with what's going on at the southern border. There are southern border Democrat senators who are probably going to get a lot of pushback for Biden's decision just to repeal Trump's Title 42 rule and open up the floodgates. There's probably going to be a Republican swing. So this idea of Democrats being able to ram through legislation and hopefully not Supreme Court nominees, that's probably going to be coming to an end shorter rather than later. That's the good news, right? I don't want to couch that with some bad news, but I want to make sure everyone understands that there's going to be a big push. It's already happening on the conservative movement. It's already happening in the election integrity sphere. A big push of different personalities jockeying for influence, different personalities jockeying for positions that we know that this is going to flip. And when it does, they want to be, it's just like a game of musical chairs. They want to be the one sitting in the chair when the music goes off. I would warn people not to get caught up. If you're a conservative, which I'm sure not everyone who watches your show is, and not everyone who watches my show is. If you're a conservative and you want to fight for conservative values, make sure that the people you're following, that the people and organizations you're donating to are actually conservative. Not just that they align with you on one issue or they claim to align with you on one issue. Really do your research, because we have the power to reshape this country. We really do. If the wrong people get elected and we elect Republicans in name only, the rhinos, then we'll stop Biden from doing what he's doing, but we won't actually advance the ball forward for the conservative movement. So there's lots of promise. There's lots of potential. It's at least the House is going to flip, but it's up to all of us to make sure that we have the right people flipping. It's not just the people running for Congress. It's also different podcasters, different shows. Not everyone in this space is conservative. Like there are lots of people in the election integrity space that admit that they're not conservative.
Right.
Like I don't think that Jovan Pulitzer is a conservative. I don't think he identifies as a conservative. You look at what's his name, the former CEO of Overstock. He says he's not a conservative. So it's possible. There's lots of things we can agree on, right?
Yeah.
You look at Vernon Jones. I'm sure you've looked at him. Vernon Jones is the worst. And he was able to finagle his way into Trump's sphere of influence to the point where now he is being advanced to run for Congress in Georgia. Well, Vernon Jones, when you actually look at the record, Vernon Jones, when he was some kind of local official, was deliberately firing white people so he could hire black people. So he used to be a Democrat, claims to be a Republican now. He kind of jumped on Trump's coattails, but the more you dig into him, the more you realize, oh, I don't want to vote for that.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with that. So just be very careful, whether it's who you vote for, what organizations you donate to, what podcasts you watch. Just make sure that it's who you want to support, and not just someone who claims to agree with you on one or two issues and secretly is opposed to you on everything else. Just do the research, because there's a lot of potential here. We can do a lot of good work if the right people are given the baton.
Well, what you said is so powerful, about knowing who you're donating to and who you're giving to. One of the things that I always talk about are like these pastors that are running trafficking rings and people are donating millions and millions of dollars. It's the same in the conservative movement and there are a lot of conservatives that are patriots that love this country. But it's funny because I've noticed some of these conservatives, like where I've done research and like, I listened to you. I was like, let me research on some of these people. And some of the people I researched, I'm like, they don't give a crap. And they are doing exactly what you just said, riding the coattails of Trump, trying to get popular off of Trump and saying Trump, 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 and being popular over that. And people are like clinging to that because they want hope. And I'm like, wait, that's not the hope that you need to have, because they're just another con job trying to get popular off of podcasts and taking your money. And it frustrates me, because I was in Colorado and we were getting arrested in Colorado for going into the parks. And, like you knew what was going on in Colorado. And there's people even in Colorado where it's like, you're just scamming people and conning people. Even some of my friends have gotten into certain of these like different movements and different organizations. And I'm like, you know what? In Colorado, you should be fighting for like real things. I mean, we've talked about my friend Susan Keltner and her brother got murdered. Like, let's talk about the issues and where are those people standing behind the people like Susan Keltner, where Antifa BLM comes and murders someone, but then you're nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? Like it's that. I mean, I think it's just so powerful because it's like, where are we giving our money? Where are we donating? What are they doing with that money? Do they care about us at all? Are they showing that they care about us? No, they're just because you say you like Trump doesn't mean you necessarily like Trump. There's a lot of people that hate the guy and are trying to take Trump down, but say how much they love him. And it's not just one person. I mean, it's a lot. I'm sure you've done a bunch of research on that.
Oh yeah. And I think I know who you're talking about in some of those examples. Yeah, you're I saw what you did there. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Do the research. There's lots of people out there, and I'm not going to name names.
No.
There's lots of people out there who every day they crank it up to 11, almost like they're in Spinal Tap. Let's crank it up to 11. Well, when everything's in 11, it's really hard to talk about good things that are happening in the country, right? And when everyone expects that the news of the day just has to be ratcheted up to 11, it leaves you nowhere to go from that, right? Yeah. The sky isn't literally falling. There's a lot of problems in this country, and we have to fix them. And we are approaching a point of no return. That is closer than it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
But every single thing cannot be an 11 out of 10. And there's lots of people who have staked their claim to the conservative movement, and their whole deal is that everything's an 11 and everything is a catastrophe and everything is an opportunity to make money from it. So just be very wary of that and don't fall for it. There are days there it's 11, right? Absolutely. There are days that the sky seems to definitely be falling as I look above to make sure it isn't at this moment.
The skies are falling behind you, the clouds.
Yeah. Yeah. Just be wary about it, because there's lots of people out there who have perfected the ability to drum up an ask for money, and make sure that if you're donating to certain organizations or certain campaigns, make sure that you know how it's being used and what it's being used for.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, everything can't be an 11. I mean, that's where depression and so much, because they follow, and that's what's happened with the mainstream media. And they've come in, I talk about mind control. There's certain things, if you hear it over and over and over again, you automatically believe it. And it's like, we do need hope. We do need like good stories. That's why I wanted to like I love to talk politics. I know like you are way more educated on politics than I ever will be. And it's just like to give people hope where you're not always talking about something that is difficult to talk about. People want to hear other things. They want to have that like encouragement of like life. Yes, it's hard, but it's not as bad. Like we can come on the other side of it. I mean, look how many times America has come on the other side of where it's gotten to. Yeah, we're close, but America's pretty badass. Like just saying,
And the other side of it is when you actually look at the data, it shows that we are closer at any point to a civil war than we ever have been since the Civil War.
Yeah.
So that is getting worse by the day. There are lots of people out there who seem to be advocating violence. And I mean, you have kids, I have kids. The last thing I want is to go to the front lines of some modern war. I mean, regardless of what you think about Ukraine, that's a modern country with modern infrastructure. We have lots of videos and pictures of what war looks like in the 21st century. Not talking about somewhere in Afghanistan, This is real war in a modern urban city. It's terrible. None of us want this.
No.
So just it doesn't have to be violence. It doesn't have to be calls to violence, calls to lawlessness. We can fix this. There's the ability to fix this. We can take the country back. I mean, it's kind of cliche to say, but we can do it without calling or actually engaging in violence. There are a lot of people who are pushing that as a message that, oh, it's time to get in the streets, things like that. It isn't. And you can know that it isn't time for to get in the streets because the people telling you to get in the streets aren't in the streets. Right? There's lots of people saying, time to go get in the streets, do this. Notice that they're not doing any of the things that they're advocating.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's so funny. I'm glad you said that because I've always said, like, we need to go to war, but I don't ever mean a physical war. Like I posted yesterday with my friend Lenka. She went into the courtroom, knew the laws, knew how to talk to the judge. She did it lawfully. They didn't go in there with guns and knives and take over a courtroom. Like she went in there lawfully and knew how to speak to the judge and educated herself and did the research. You know, there's ways to stand up to like tyranny without going to war. Like I said, you know, we're in Colorado. It's like, okay, you're going to arrest us, but then we're going to stand up to this because this is an unlawful arrest of like you're arresting us because we're in the park. I mean, and I am on a front line of a war when I'm going and extracting these children. No one wants to be there. No one wants to do that. And I don't want the war at my doorstep or your doorstep or anyone with kids, because think about our kids that are a little bit older. If that war comes to our doorstep, our kids that are older, we were going to have to put a gun in their hand and tell them to fight. That is not what I want for my kids. And that's why we do things like this. And I am fighting the war on child trafficking on the front line so my kids don't have to do it and we can have like a better country. But you said it perfectly too. I mean, the people that are saying, oh, do this, where the hell are you? You're saying do this. And guess what? Some of these people that are advocating for that, I asked some of them, hey, will you go with me to extract these kids because you have the training? Crickets.
Yeah.
It tells you all you need to know. Like, you know what I mean? So.
And again, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Listen, we're not naming names here because we just want to make this a positive, like in a good conversation. So that's why we're not naming names because we don't I don't want to get sued. I only name names when I have receipts.
But it also probably wouldn't be hard to figure out. Violence is it's a last resort, right? So if it's a last resort, then we need to be fighting like hell to exhaust all other options. You don't skip the other options and go right to marching in the streets or dragging people out of courthouses or dragging school administrators out of schools. No, you exhaust every other possible avenue. And there's lots. I mean, just look around the country at what people are doing with their school boards. Yeah. No shots had to be fired to take back the school boards in Northern Virginia. In Loudoun County, they just did it. The people got together and did it. So I'm never going to say that I wouldn't fight because there are lots of lines that I've already drawn in the sand that if the government was to cross those lines, I would be right there with one of my guns. I'd have to pick which one I want to use. But I would be right there, right? And I think most patriots would. We have to make sure it never gets to that point. No one actually wants that, and we have to exhaust every possible mechanism, avenue, strategy to avoid it. Because I don't want to put a gun in my kid's hand. You don't want to put a gun in your kid's hand. We don't want to leave them orphans. There's it's not a game. And there's lots of people out there who are kind of treating it like a game. And I'd say again, recognize that they're advocating things that they're not themselves doing.
Yeah. And it's not a game. And I mean, look, Douglas County, I don't know if you know this, in Colorado, they removed the superintendent in Douglas County and people were all mad, but I'm like, this is a horrible superintendent. He should be removed.
I hope they remove the sheriff too. The sheriff is no conservative. Spurlock is no conservative. He was teaming up with Moms Demand Action, trying to push gun control in Douglas County. So you gotta be careful.
Yeah, right. Well, that's exactly it. But think about if all of us stood up to the tyranny lawfully, no war, because we already have a constitution. The war was already fought for us. We don't need to go there again. This is a different type of war. It's a war on information. It's a war on the truth. It's like it is a totally different. And we, again, standing up the right way. If we all just said, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, think about Rosa Parks. She
Yeah.
literally just sat at the front of the bus. I mean, did she have a knife or did she have a gun? Did she put a gun to the bus driver's head? No, she's like, I'm not moving. I'm sitting here. Imagine if all of us did that when the scamdemic happened. There goes
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
YouTube again.
There you
And
go.
all
There it
just
goes.
sat in like, it's going to get kicked down before like the first 20 minutes. If we all just sat in restaurants and said, I'm not moving, serve me. And if you're not going to serve me, we're going to sit here anyway.
Yeah.
Like, but people weren't doing that. People were so afraid. And I get in the beginning, none of us knew, right? But I think we all figured it out pretty quickly. Like
Yeah.
when they started shutting down our small businesses and everything like that. So, I mean, I'm with you. And we're getting here to an hour, but I mean, what would you gave encouragement? I mean, first give us like one like last word of encouragement and then tell us where we can find you and please talk about your book too, because I
Yeah,
want
sure.
people to know about that.
So my last word of encouragement is that more than ever, people are waking up. They've woken up from the pandemic, from COVID. I mean, people understand that that's not happening anymore. Fauci goes on these Sunday talk shows, and they barely even give him a minute, where they used to give him the whole hour. So people have woken up to these things, and they've realized that they've been duped, that they've been had. So understand, it's easy to feel alone. Understand that you're not alone. There are plenty of people who feel the same things you feel, are as frustrated as you are, and they're out there. So find different communities here. On my podcast, I'm trying to build a community there. Find like-minded people and fight together. Because I always say at the end of all my podcasts, the fight to take back the country, it's not over, not by a long shot. But if we want to win this, we have to really fight all together. And one of the ways that I'm trying to help people out is I have a book that's coming out. It's called The Conservative's Guide to Winning Every Gun Control Argument. I have all of these thoughts in my head. I've been doing this for so long. I figure I should put it to paper and help people win these arguments, right? So the first one's going to be on the Second Amendment. Second one probably be on abortion, then probably one on race, just so that you can be well equipped with all the court cases, the regulations, the laws, and then understanding the arguments that they're going to throw at you and how you can kind of defeat them pretty easily with a little ninja action. So that book is coming out this week on gun control. Just have to finalize some stuff, but that'll be out this week, and then the next book's probably a month after that.
Will your book be on Amazon? Like, where are you going to sell your book?
Mm-hmm. So Amazon is the easiest way to do it, but I'm also going to pay to make sure it gets put into other bookstores. Maybe not actually brick and mortar, that's up to them, but you'll be able to buy it on like Barnes and Noble, things like that. And I'm also going to buy some books myself, sign them, and once I figure out how to do all that, sell them myself. But Amazon will be probably where it first drops, just because they make printing on demand so easy, where I can send them the book, the art, the PDF, and they print it every time someone buys it. So I'm not left with a room full of books.
Listen, it's hard. That's how I did it first and sent the books out. It was difficult, but I did it on Gumroad too, because you can do like just a PDF file, and then if they want an online one,
Yeah,
and you
I'm
can
gonna use Amazon for Amazon. I think I'm gonna use Ingram Spark for everywhere else, because Amazon takes too much of a cut.
Yeah.
If you sell an Amazon book on other websites, so it wouldn't be worth it at that point. So I'm gonna use both of them probably.
Yeah. Well, I am so excited to follow. Do I get a signed book? Do I?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I'll give you my fake address.
Okay, give me your PO box.
Yeah, I'll give you my PO box. I don't know if you're like crazy or not, Max. So.
No, I'm not.
Guys, if you want to follow Max, I mean, listen, he's got the Max McGuire show. Follow him on Telegram. I will be posting his book and everything in my Telegram channel. And if you accidentally got kicked off of his Telegram, I know, can you tell him about that? Because I know someone had asked me, so I just want you to address that real quick.
Oh, on mine? Oh,
yeah.
If someone accidentally got kicked off, I'm so sorry. I just installed bots because I was getting so much spam. So the bots might be working a little too hard and might be deleting the wrong people. So if you got deleted, just send me a message and I'll happily let you back in. That's not my doing. I just got tired of bots spamming my channel with, oh, go watch this, do this.
Yeah.
So the bots might be a little bit too overzealous.
Yeah. They're
I
like,
promise. I haven't banned anyone. I don't have the time to ban people.
You don't have the time. All the haters. Well, I hope to interview you again and have you come back. I mean, I love you and your family. I just think you really are the American family. I mean, you stand up for all that is right. And so I just appreciate you. And thanks for coming on my
Yeah, no
podcast. I know
problem.
you've been around a lot longer than I have. So I appreciate it.
Well, I thank you so much for having me, Madyson. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. All right, everyone. Have a good one. Mwah.